שירו לאדוני, ברכו שמו, בסכו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסכו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, לכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא על כל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש,
להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, לשמך עליון. ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, בלילות. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב, טוב, טוב להודות, טוב להודות לאדוני.
Shabbat Shalom. We begin setting our intention for the Shabbat morning on page 67. I invite you to read responsively. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out our pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
We continue on page 76 with Asher Yatzar, thanking God for our bodies, and then we will move to Elohai Neshama, thanking God for our souls. I'm actually going to say page 77, not 76. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware. We would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. Page 78. Page 81 at the top, we read together. I can stay the tears of others if I can see myself as diminished of their sorrows. I can hasten time when everyone will be able to rejoice in freedom. And if I can see myself as the companion of those fighting against oppression, I can honor the struggle of people everywhere to gain dignity and deliverance from bondage. When I look at myself in the mirror, who will I see? Page 87. We seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and in the study of Torah, in your search for us? You find us in the bending of the knee, in the rigor of study, in the honesty of commerce, through a good heart, through decency, in respect, true fellowship, companionship and love, through truth and peace, in the no that is really no, and the yes that is really yes. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. On page 106, we rise for Chatzi Kaddish and remain standing through Shema.
יתקדש שמי רבה, אמן. ועמד יברח חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון ויומכון, וחייך בית ישראל. בגלו ובזמן קריב, וימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי המיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשו בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעולמה, וימרו אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, osei shalom uvarei et hakol, hami'ir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, ma'ala ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, va'al ma'orei or sha'asita yifa'arucha sela, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh hulanu mehera la'oro, baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'ma'orot. We continue at the bottom of page 113. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light blinded we saw, that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. You spoke and we wrote, we reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us, as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated. Please join me on page 116 with V'ahavta.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת.
Page 123, we join together. The good in us will win over all the wickedness, over all the wrongs we have done. We will look back at the pages of written history and be amazed, and then we will laugh and sing, and the good that is in us, children in their cradles, will have won. Our hearts beat with certainty that there is a day and an hour and a mountain called Zion, and that all of the sufferings will gather there and become song, ringing out into every corner of the earth from end to end, and the nations will hear it, and like the caravans in the desert will all to that morning throng. We continue with the Amidah on page 124. Please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agitei latecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, Eloyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chastei Avot v'imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei bneihem, למען שמו ואהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה כל התרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מלחמוך בעל גבורות, ומיתו מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מדיר שמך, מדיר שמך לכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהייך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גדלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש, אמן.
You may be seated. We continue on page 132 as we sing Yismechu, rejoicing in this day of rest that God gave us.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי שומרים
We continue at the bottom of page 134, reading together. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. We continue on page 139, thanking God for all that is around us. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations. Modim anachnu lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons. Modim anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements. Modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression. Modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared. Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. Modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. Modim anachnu lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha lecha na'eh lehodot.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova veracha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova veracha. Ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova veracha.
Please take a moment for your own silent prayer.
Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our service for the reading of Torah, page 245. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. We rise in honor of our Torah. The bottom of page 247, we read responsively. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now.
Its teaching is love and justice,
goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Baruch Shanatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shanatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti unomema Shemo yachtav. Lecha Adonai hagdolah hagvara hatiferet vehanetzach vehahod. Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz. Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai amamacha emitnosei lechol erosh. Hine ma tov u'ma na'im, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'ma na'im, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya la 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 la. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya la 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 la.
You may be seated. So typically on a Shabbat morning, we ask that you come up to the bima. With our restrictions of the distance, we are going to have you stay in your seat. But Cantor Berlin is going to bring the text study to you. And then she'll be able to go around with the microphone so we can still have you participate and be our readers. So in our Torah portion this week, which is Ve'et Hanan, Moses is continuing his speech to the Israelites, explaining that he can't get into the promised land and that he tried, and fought with God a little bit to try to make that happen. It didn't happen. And in this Torah portion, we have a couple of things, really big things. One is we have the 10 Commandments, a second time within our Torah, written a little bit different from the first one. And then we also have the Shema and the V'ahavta, right? So big liturgical pieces and important pieces within Judaism itself. So I was super nice to Cantor Berlin, and I'm letting her read Shema and V'ahavta from Torah, so I wanted to focus on this a little bit. This first line of V'ahavta, which you see is bolded in that text. Andrew, would you read Deuteronomy 6, 4-9, please?
Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates.
All right, so that should sound pretty familiar. We already read that today, right? We did that as part of our liturgy this morning. But I wanted to focus again on that first line of the Ve'ahavta. And so what does it actually mean when we say with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might? What are we understanding that to be? Samantha, will you read Rashi talking about with all your heart? Sure. And I gave you transliteration, so that should help there.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
With all your heart. Behol lavavcha, the double vet in
Lavavcha.
Lavavcha. Instead of the usual form, livcha, suggests love God with your two inclinations, the good and the evil. Another explanation. Instead of the explanation with all your heart, is that your heart should not be divided, i.e. at variance with the omnipresent.
Thank you, right? So Rashi likes to look at the grammatical pieces of this a lot. And so Rashi says, look, like, levavcha, there's two vets. Okay, if you look at the Hebrew, there's two vets in there. And then he says, as opposed to the one with just one. So it has to be some kind of meaning. We got to get something from it. So he decides that means that we have to love God even with our evil inclination and our good inclination at the same time. Or no matter what, we have to love God with our full heart. We can't have it divided. Rashi says those are our two maybe explanations of loving God with all our heart. So then we continue and we say, well, what does with all your soul mean? Michael, will you read Rashbam? See what happens? I call on you, right?
Uchol nafshecha, with all your soul, according to the plain meaning of the text, even if it will cost your life. It must mean this. Seeing that the Torah had already been covered all the other bases when it wrote, B'chol lavshecha, with all your heart, the meaning is that while alive, you are to love God with all your heart. If your faith and love for God is put to the test and you must choose that or your very survival, you must choose the former.
Thank you, right? So Rashbam, it's a little bit of a stretch, right? But Rashbam says, well, with all your heart has it totally covered. So we had to put soul in there to remind us that while we're living, we need to be loving God. And even if we're put at this place of, do we want to die? Or are we going to keep our faith? Not do we want to die, right? Are we going to die or want to keep our faith? That the choice is there. We choose God every time. Okay? This is another reason why people say that Shema are the last words you say with your last breath is that you are choosing God even with your last breath. Joy, will you read Rashi on your next page?
And with all your means, with all your possessions, there are people whose possessions are more precious to them than their own bodies. Therefore it says, and with all your means, another explanation of the kol makadeka is you shall love God with whatever measure he mets out of you, whether it be the measure of good or the measure of retribution.
Thank you, right? So we have this idea, it's all your heart, the good and the bad. Then we have the soul, that you're always choosing God and to have that connection with God. And then means, it's that it's not just about what you possess, but it's going beyond that, right? It's everything that you are, making sure that your possessions are not standing before God. And then I love this idea of it's the midah, this measure that no matter what, you are still going to love God, even at those times where it's really difficult. So that's all really wonderful. I love that imagery, but what about the practical sense, right? And what are the things that we have to do to love God? And we have Rabbanit Lisa Schlaf, who explains and puts this wonderful commentary, and I know it's long, but I couldn't have said it better. So I'll have you come over here. Okay. Tim, would you read? I won't make you read the whole thing if you don't want to.
You can do it.
Interestingly, this is the first time the notion of loving God appears in the Torah. To the desert Jew who knew of God through the splitting of the sea, the thunder and lightning of Matan Torah, mass plague, and bread falling from the sky, this was a shocking statement. You must fear God, yes. You must be in awe of God, certainly. You must love God would have been an incomprehensible command. And so, as Bible professor Jeffrey Tigay suggests, the first paragraph of Shema makes it clear that loving God is not an abstract emotion, but is grounded in the concrete observance of mitzvot. Once we have internalized the mitzvot and shared them with our children, we share them with the community. The project of loving God involves engaging as individuals, as members of a family, and as members of a community. Returning to the Jews in the desert, the command to love God is no longer amorphous or jarring. It is grounded in very concrete action items. We express love to our children not only by saying, "I love you," but by sitting on the floor and playing puzzles with them. We express love to our parents not only by saying, "I love you," but by doing the food shopping when needed. And to God, we might not say, "I love you" at all, but we fill our lives with daily ritual, everywhere and all the time. That is a powerful expression of love. On this Shabbat Nachamu, may we find comfort in our own constant and repetitive expression of this love.
Thank you, right? So she says all of the fearing God, be in awe of God, those make sense, right? The first 4 books, those make sense. There's some pretty crazy things happening. So now to be saying that you have to love God is a pretty big step. And how do we understand that? And she talks about Shabbat Nachamu. So we are in Shabbat Nachamu, which is the Shabbat of consolation following Tisha B'Av, which is the holiday where we commemorate the destruction of the temples and other things that have befallen the Jews. And we need a comfort. And this comfort is to love God, to have this relationship with God no matter what, and that the ways that we can do that are in our everyday practices and rituals and following the commandments. Now, we may not follow every commandment. I know I don't, right? But what commandments can we do to make sure that we are maintaining that connection with God? So as we continue through the Shabbat Nachamu, and as we go towards the High Holy Day, may we be comforted by God's love and those rituals that we do to be connected to God even more. Shabbat Shalom. So like I said, Cantor Berlin is going to read, chant, not just read, Shema and Ve'ahavta, these verses of Torah. And we are going to do our blessing together. So you can go to page 250, and we'll do our blessings. Do you want the holder? So it's really easy to find because the letters of Shema are much bigger text. So the last letter of the word Shema, the Ayin, is very large, and the last letter of Echad, the last word of Shema, is also very large. When I lift it up for Hagba, look for it. You'll be able to see that Daled really obviously.
It's also, they did it that way in the prayer book.
Yes, that is true. If you go back to Shema, which is 34, right? Yeah, 34. Sort of bigger. It's not as obvious. Yes, there is an explanation on the bottom. But anyway, you'll see it when I lift up Torah. All right, so our blessing, page 250. Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach. Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavecha, v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol me'odecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ולכתך בדרך, וכשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Our closing blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. On page 253, we come together to do our blessing for healing. We gain strength from the words in this Torah, from the ways that we can love God. If you have those who are in your hearts who are in need of healing of mind, body, or spirit, take a moment and whisper their names aloud. Page 253. As we turn to page 252 to lift our Torah high, besides the Shema being a really special thing that you can see here with that big Dalet, you'll also notice some odd breaks, and that is where the other 10 commandments is listed. So when I lift it up, you'll be able to see those things. Page 252, we rise in honor of our Torah.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה.
Page 256.
עת חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה, תחנון בכל
continue with Aleinu on page 283.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא שמח חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. As we turn to page 291 for our memorial meditation, we note with sadness the death of Susan Setters Jacobson, sister of Barbara Setters Fox, mother of Andy Jacobson, Julie Jacobson and Dwayne Paulson, Carrie Jacobson and Rick Schachter, grandmother of Ian, Allie, Jake, Nick and Nicole, and Maggie, great-grandmother of Amelia and Riley. The memorial service will be on Zoom tomorrow, July 25th at 2 p.m. Page 291. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were, in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become, yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life, now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. Our thoughts turn now to those in our community who have died at this time in years past. As we mark their yahrzeits, we remember them. Israel Barenblatt, Rachel Barenblatt, Margaret Barnes, Meyer Barnett, Esther Beichman, Marion Benedict, Stanley Berman, Clara Braslow, Valerie Brown, Henry Cohen, Pearl Lee Coyne, Richard Dulcimer, Farnese Falkstein, Evelyn Danziger Feldman, Lawrence Finkel, Jack Flashberg, Evelyn Franks, Seidel Gottlieb, Anne Grom, Horace C. Hall III, Herbert Halstead, Rosalind Hirschberg, Rabbi Morris M. Hirschman, Leon Jacobson, Brian David Kasser, Carlene Hammer Kaufman, Richard Kirschberg, Harry Kirstner, Tibby Callison Kotz, Lester Landy, Milton Lebo, Joshua Evan Levine, Jean Lipset, Rita Luft, Babette Marcus, Meyer Margolis, Louis Matisoff, Lillian Mongite, Stephen Palins, Ethel Penner, Ann Polunsky, Sylvan Polunsky, Donald Pomerantz, Foley Rappaport, Louis Ratner, Jacob Ricklin, Shirley Rotblut, Mildred Charlack Sachs, William Saxon Jr., Robert George Schiffmacher, Dr. Irving Schoenfeld, L. Taylor Seiden, Dr. Alan G. Silver, John Patrick Smith, Melvin Techtiel, Nathan Ubogi, Charles Way, Ralph L. Williams, and Andrea Tackman Wu. To these names, we add those who've died this past month, whose families are in a mourning period of Shloshim. We remember Howard Schechterman, Helene Katz Ricklin, and Louise K. Baumholtz. We also think of two who've died this past week, whose families are in a mourning period of Shiva. We remember Elaine Gale, mother of Scott Gale, grandmother of Dana and Mark Williams, and Shelley and Chip Riley, great-grandmother of Colton, Ryan, Charlie, and Shipley. We also remember Alec Fisher, father of Peter and Tony Fisher, David Fisher, and Diane and David Fisher, grandfather of Lauren, Daniela, Adam, Simone, Seth, Bradley, and Lily, great-grandfather of 12 precious great-grandchildren, and brother of Nita Schuster. We add to these those who are in our hearts each and every day as we join together for Kaddish Yatom on page 294. Please rise. Yitz Gadal v'yitz Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach Geruteh v'yamlich Malchuteh, B'chayachon u'b'yom echon, B'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalau v'yizman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Umei Almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal Shemei d'Kudesha B'richu, La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Our closing song this morning is SIA 9, which can be found on page 339. Shabbat Shalom.